you ever hear the expression, he's a chip off the old block? Today's Dining Room Devo, we're going to see what that expression has to do with our relationship with God. We're looking at 1 Peter 2, verses 4 and 5. As you come to him, the living stone, rejected by humans but chosen by God and precious to him, you also, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house to be a holy priesthood, offering spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. In our last video, we talked about the importance of Peter calling Jesus a stone, but today I want to focus on the word living, which comes right before that. Why is Jesus the living stone? And the answer is actually very simple. It's because he's alive. Jesus Christ has overcome death. But the reason that's important is because Jesus isn't just a foundation. We talked about that last time, that Jesus is our foundation. He's our cornerstone. But he's not just a foundation. He's a living foundation. He's one that we can interact with, that we have a relationship with, because he is alive. Our faith is not in principles or in ideas or in philosophies. It's in a living person that transforms us. So Jesus is not just a stone the builders rejected. He is the living stone. And Peter here also calls us living stones. He says in verse 5, you also like living stones. He uses the same phrase to refer to us as he does to Jesus. In other words, we're to be like Jesus. In fact, that's what the word Christian originally meant. The word Christian wasn't invented by Christians. It was invented by non-Christians who looked at believers and said, well, look at all those little Christs running around. That's what the word meant, was little Christ. It was a term of derision. And the Christian said, I'll take that. I want to be like Jesus, so I'll be a little Christ. Because we're supposed to be chips off the old block. We're supposed to be like Jesus. God intends for you to remind people of Jesus and your values and your actions and your attitude. We are living stones. The power of Christ's resurrection is in us. In fact, Paul says that the same Spirit, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is alive in all of us. Think about that. God's Spirit is in us, remaking us, doing the work in us, sometimes in ways where we can't even see, but we have to be receptive to that work. We have to allow him to do that in us. And he can do great things in us because the living stone, Jesus Christ, is using us. And Peter says that we, like living stones, are being built into a spiritual house. Us individual stones are being built into something. You ever feel alone? This COVID pandemic has really isolated so many of us, hasn't it? But I love the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks. Have you seen that movie? Where he's on an island by himself for like 5 years. And I used to watch that movie and think, I bet I could do that. I could survive on my own. The challenge of the whole thing seemed kind of intriguing to me. When you watch that video, you see that Hanks' character, even though he survived, his character was miserable on that island by himself. And the truth is, I would be too. We're made to need other people. But to be honest, there's some Christians that when it comes to their faith, they think that they can go it alone. They don't need to have a church family, or they don't need a community of believers to encourage them. But the truth is, we need each other, and Peter kind of refers to that here. He says, we individual living stones are being built into something. We need each other. We're being built into a spiritual house. You see, the church is not a building. You may go to church, but the church isn't a building. It's a people. We're connected. We support each other. And we're held together by our cornerstone, which is Jesus Christ. Through the church, us individual stones are built into a house. We become more than we were on our own. We glorify God better together than we did apart. As it's been said, we are better together. God wants us in relationship with each other. Peter goes on to say that we are a holy priesthood that offers spiritual sacrifices. Now, what do you think of when I say the word priest? Solemn-looking men with big hats and big robes carrying incense? That's not the vision that Peter refers to when it comes to priests. No, a priest really at the foundation is somebody that connects people to God. In the Old Testament, this was done by priests who offered sacrifices and prayers to God on behalf of sinners. But in the New Testament sense, our role as priests really is to connect people to God through the salvation he offers through the message of Jesus Christ. And each of us has a role, and we're going to get into that more in a few weeks when we look at 1 Peter chapter 4. But he says that we offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God. Now, what kind of sacrifices is he talking about? Well, he's not referring to lambs or goats or bulls. That's not necessary. Jesus is the only sacrifice we need, the only sacrifice for sin. As Paul says in Romans 12:1, we offer our bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. That is our spiritual act of worship. What does Paul mean when he says that we are living sacrifices? Well, what that means is that everything that we do is dedicated to God. Our motivation should be to please God in everything we do and say and think. And that's what Jesus did. Before he left the earth in John 17:4, Jesus said, I have brought you, speaking to his Father, I have brought you glory on earth by completing the work you gave me to do. So everything you've wanted me to do, Father, I've done. And if we want to be a chip off the old block, that should be our attitude too, to please God in every way, to be a living sacrifice. And Jesus is the acting force behind all of this. He's the one that's building us. And sometimes it's good to take stock of what the Lord is doing within us. What has God been doing in your life recently? Do you recognize his activity? Is he calling you to holier living, or to be more vocal about your faith, or maybe to become better connected with a group of believers? And if you're not sure, pray and ask him, and he will show you what he is doing. And keep your eyes open. Next time we're going to look at the question of how Christians are different from the world. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can like or leave a comment on this video, or you can visit us at newparisfirst.com. Or better yet, if you don't have a church family, we would love to be yours. Stop by and see us on Sunday. May God bless you.